innovation in manufacture of solutions like the oxygen recycling system, Navrakshak PPE and mask, multifold oxygen manifold, digital stethoscope, and smart nebulizer. In the midst of COVID's second wave, 10 naval ships under the aegis of Op Samudra Setu 2 transshipped more than 1,100 metric tons of liquid medical oxygen to India. The Indian Navy supported the government's vision of helping our friends across the seas by extending support and succor during the pandemic. Missions Sagar 3 to Sagar 7 reiterated India's commitment to the region as iron ships and aircraft provided COVID assistance to 8 friendly foreign countries across the oceans through deployment of naval medical teams, medicines, vaccines, and humanitarian aid. Despite the disruptive impact of the pandemic, the Navy has maintained its operational readiness and tempo through prompt implementation of preventive protocols. Our focus on maintaining combat and mission readiness resulted in deterring any misadventure in the maritime domain while contributing to the national COVID effort both internally and across the seas. Our mission-based deployment philosophy has enhanced the Indian Navy's presence across the region, enabling rapid responses to emerging security challenges. The Navy has established a persistent footprint in our areas of interest. Naval deployments also serve as a deterrent to inimical interests, clearly signaling the Navy's reach, capability, and intent. Our Navy also remains continuously deployed to curb maritime piracy in the Gulf of Aden. So far, 91 ships have been deployed in the region since 2008. And you would recall that due to persistent efforts of the Government of India and the Indian Navy, the Indian Ocean piracy high-risk area has been reduced substantially. In addition to anti-piracy, owing to heightened tensions in the Strait of Hormuz, our warships also remain deployed in the Gulf since June 2019, so as to reassure Indian merchant vessels transiting the region. 27 naval ships have escorted 381 Indian-flagged merchant vessels and 305 lakh tons of cargo under the aegis of Op Sankalp. Among major exercises we conducted, the TROPEX or the theatre level operational readiness exercise, wherein contingencies across the spectrum of operations were wargamed to test and validate our concept of operations, hone our warfighting skills, and bolster our efforts towards maritime security in the region. The exercise witnessed participation of all our operational ships, submarines and aircraft, as well as units of the Indian Army, Indian Air Force, and the Coast Guard. As part of TROPEX, we also conducted a large-scale coastal defense exercise, Exercise Sea Vigil, involving all maritime stakeholders. I'll now speak briefly on the Indian Navy's contribution to various Government of India initiatives. Firstly, about Sagar and the Neighbourhood First policy. Aligned with the Honorable Prime Minister's vision of Sagar, security and growth for all in the region, the Navy participated in 22 bilateral and multilateral exercises this year. These included exercises like Varuna with the French Navy, Indra with the Russian Navy, Konkan with the Royal Navy in August, Malabar with Quad Nations in August and October, Ausindex with the Australian Navy in September, JIMEX with the Japanese Navy, and the most recent exercise, SITMEX with Singapore and Thailand navies in November. These exercises have contributed immensely to enhance cooperation and trust. Further, the complexity of these exercises have been increased, leading to mutual understanding and interoperability. We undertook joint EZ surveillance with Mauritius as well as coordinated patrols with Myanmar, Thailand and Indonesia. Iron ships were deployed to undertake hydrographic surveys for friendly littoral countries on their request for almost 110 days in the last year. We also handed over one Dornier aircraft to the government of Mauritius in September this year, and our hydrographic team is also part of the 42nd Indian Scientific Expedition to Antarctica to conduct surveys of Indian stations Maitri and Bharti. Our engagement with friendly foreign countries through initiatives like the Goa Maritime Conclave as well as the Indo-Pacific Regional Dialogue under the IONS construct aim to develop areas of convergence and cooperation, including through elements of capacity building and capability enhancement. These engagements help improve interoperability, enhance security, and affirm our commitment to be the first responder and the first port of call for our friendly maritime nations in the IOR. While we improve operational capabilities and forge closer maritime ties with our neighbors and partners, we also continue to be proactive in rendering humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. INS Kiltan provided succor to Vietnam in the aftermath of massive floods in December last year. Our helicopters conducted medical evacuation of one Malaysian and one Filipino crew of Mumbai and Kochi respectively. INS Talwar provided technical assistance to an adrift motor vessel in the Gulf of Oman. Our Dornier and ALH detachments at Maldives continue to perform crucial life-saving missions. Approximately 100 evacuation missions have been undertaken by our detachment there over the last year. The prompt response to these contingencies demonstrate our resolve to be the first responder in the region. Even at the national level, the Navy has promptly responded to all contingencies. 16 iron ships and 12 aircraft were deployed during extensive search and rescue operations during Cyclone Tauktae. In addition, we provided HADR assistance post-Cyclone Yas off Orissa coast. Information remains a critical building block toward ensuring comprehensive maritime security in the region. In this endeavor, the Information Fusion Center at Gurgaon has established itself as the hub of maritime security information in the IOR. This has been achieved through white shipping agreements with 22 countries and one multinational construct. International liaison officers from 14 countries have been invited to join the center, out of which 9 countries have already sent their liaison officers and the rest are awaited. Talking of Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, as far as self-reliance in the defense sector is concerned, in building a future Navy, we remain committed to the vision of Make in India and Atmanirbharta across all domains, surface, subsurface and air. Indian Navy's commitment to Atmanirbharta is evident from the fact that of 28 ships and submarines commissioned into the Navy over the last 7 years, all have been built in India. Further, of the 39 ships and submarines currently under construction, 37 are being built at Indian shipyards. These include the aircraft carrier Vikrant, Project 15 Bravo class destroyers, Project 17 Alpha class stealth frigates, and the Scorpion class submarines. Amongst these projects, Vikrant has completed 2 sea sorties as part of the contractor sea trials. The indigenous design and construction of an aircraft carrier by the Indian Navy and the Cochin Shipyard Limited is a shining example of a quest for Atmanirbharta with more than 76% indigenous content. Visakhapatnam, the first of the Project 15 Bravo destroyers, was commissioned last month, and the remaining 3 ships of the class are likely to be delivered by 2024. Himgiri, the second of the 7 ships of the Project 17 Alpha frigates, was launched in December last year at GRSC, Calcutta. Modernization of our submarine arm is also underway. We have commissioned 4 of the 6 boats of the indigenous Scorpion-class submarines. This year, we commissioned the 3rd boat, Karanch, in March, and the 4th boat, Vela, in November. The 5th boat, Wagir, has already been launched. As regards to indigenization in aviation, we inducted 9 ALH Mark III, 2 Chetaks, and 2 Dornier aircraft this year. The first ALH Mark III squadron was commissioned at Goa as INAS 323 in April this year. Our Atmanirbharta initiatives are not only focused on operational platforms, but also extend to infrastructure development, which underpin our ability to undertake and support operations. The most important amongst the Navy's infrastructure project is, of course, Project Seabird at Karwar, which is progressing on track. The construction of 7 operational and 2 refit piers, creation of a full-fledged dockyard, upgrading of the hospital, and construction of a naval air station are planned during this phase. Additionally, the Navy's infrastructure plans are also focusing on our island territories, which are a springboard for our operations and enhance our sustenance and reach. Towards this end, phase 2 of the jetty expansion plan at Port Blair has already been completed in March this year. I would also like to inform you that acceptance of necessity, or the AON, exists for 72 projects worth rupees 1,97,359 crores, of which 59 projects worth 1,74,027 crores. That is, almost 88% are for indigenous projects. And through these projects, we will also aim to provide as much impetus as possible to Startup India and Skill India initiatives. Coming to Startup India, in the last year, we have supported, funded, and handheld more than 35 startups and MSMEs for various projects towards developing niche technologies or products for our Navy. The Navy is actively engaged in Defense Indian Startup Challenge and is encouraging Indian defense industries and startups through IDEX. 19 problem statements are being progressed through 24 startups towards fostering an ecosystem for innovation and technology development for defense applications. Additionally, 17 Technology Development Fund projects are being pursued by the Navy in partnership with DRDO for developing niche technologies that will form the kernel of equipment to be fitted on board our platforms. In order to enhance the Navy's interactions with the industry, we are actively pursuing an industry yatra through the recently established Naval Innovation and Indigenization Organization to match the existing industrial capabilities with our requirements and provide a fillip to innovation. Now, Skill India. As I've already brought out, most of our capability accretion projects are indigenous. In addition to plowing back a large portion of the naval budget back into our economy, these projects accrue numerous downstream benefits, such as employment generation in shipyards, ancillary industries, and MSMEs, thereby driving the creation of a skilled workforce. Further, as a multidimensional force, our personnel imbibe significant skills during their service to the nation. In order to ensure that these skills contribute to nation building, even after they hang up their uniforms, the Navy is exploring various opportunities to support the Skill India program by conducting MOUs with various leading MNCs. Last year, we have facilitated the employment of 88 personnel to these MNCs, and MOUs have also been concluded with 2 companies through which about 100 personnel are pursuing their second career option. Towards the Digital India initiative, which aims at creation of digital infrastructure and delivering services digitally, the IN has taken great strides through implementation of Naval Communication Network Program. This state-of-the-art digital communication backbone is planned to be commissioned during the first quarter of 2022 and would provide seamless communication and delivery of digital services to naval bases spread across the country. In order to ensure that every Indian is provided with a fair opportunity to join the Navy, the INS shifted to a computer-based examination called the Indian Naval Entrance Test in February 2018. Since then, we have endeavored to conduct 2 examinations per year with an approximate participation of almost 6 to 8 lakhs candidates in each edition. The Indian Naval Civilian Entrance Test has also been structured on similar lines for recruitment of defense civilians. We have also made significant progress in implementation of Government E-Market or GEM. More than 26,000 orders worth rupees 778 crores have been placed on the GEM portal till date. For the current financial year, the Navy has already achieved more than 80% of our annual target by placing orders worth rupees 431.69 crores against an allocated amount of rupees 532 crores within the first 8 months. We intend to continue enhancing the use of GEM in our procurement processes. The INS actively participated in Sehat OPD project, which aims to provide medical teleconsultation services to all personnel and dependents of the armed forces and ECHS beneficiaries. Initially, we had nominated 75 medical officers across all commands for this project. However, with the migration of the project to NIC server, we have empaneled many more medical officers and enhanced the facility to accommodate ECHS beneficiaries as well. Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav Abhiyan. As part of commemoration of 75 glorious years of independence, the Indian Navy is undertaking numerous activities across the nation and beyond. On 15th August 21, the Indian flag was hoisted simultaneously in 4 overseas locations by our naval ships. Additionally, with an aim to promote maritime consciousness, commemorative visits are being undertaken by iron ships to 75 Indian ports, and other activities include conduct of quiz competitions spanning 118 schools, participation of marine commandos in skydiving demonstrations, visits to 75 islands, interactions at 75 fishing villages, sail parades at Kochi, Mumbai and Vizag, and offshore sailing race from Kochi to Goa on board INSV Maday. And based on the Honorable Prime Minister's idea, 75 sentences used in daily life were translated into Hindi, Devanagari, English and 21 other Indian languages and hosted in the Naval Intranet portal for naval personnel to gain familiarity with more number of Indian languages. Swarnim Vijay Varsh. Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav coincides with Swarnim Vijay Varsh celebrations. As a mark of solemn tribute and celebration of victory in the 71 war, 4 victory flames are being taken across the nation and Bangladesh by tri-services teams. The 4 flames are being brought back to Delhi for amalgamation into the eternal flame at the National War Memorial. A special memorial service is also being planned at the Kukri Memorial at Diu on 16 December this year. This year is also being celebrated by Bangladesh as Mujibo Basho, marking the birth centenary of Bangladesh's father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. 2 iron ships were deployed to Mongla, Bangladesh in March this year to jointly commemorate these occasions of historical significance to both the nations. I'll now briefly touch upon recent developments in consonance with the Government of India's objective to empower women. We have taken measures towards providing additional opportunities for women officers in the Navy. Women officers have been appointed on board almost all major warships. The first woman provost officer has joined this specialization in March this year. And induction of women officers into the IT cadre will also commence from June next year. And modalities for downstream training of women as cadet entry at NDA are being worked out, and the Navy is fully prepared in all respects to induct and absorb women across a wide spectrum of roles and responsibilities. A few words are also in order about the defense reforms currently underway in India. I would like to reiterate the Navy's wholehearted support for reforms in our higher defense organization and on enhancing tri-service synergy. We are looking at the establishment of the Maritime Theatre Command in the near future, which would further buttress joint planning and joint application of force in the maritime domain. The details are being worked out and may be finalized by the mid of next year. To conclude, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to reiterate that despite the complex security situation in the region and the adverse impact of COVID-19, the Indian Navy as a cohesive team maintained our operational tempo and ensured security of all our maritime interests. As we move forward, it will be our endeavor to remain combat ready at all times. We will work closely with our other sister services and government agencies to ensure that our nation's security remains uncompromised. Our commitment to Atmanirbhar Bharat will be reinforced by indigenization of major equipment and systems through multiple avenues, including the flagship Make in India campaign. We will continue with our sustained efforts to support the national initiatives such as Digital India, Skill India, Startup India, and other GOI initiatives. Indian Navy is also conscious of its role and responsibility as the premier maritime force in the region. In keeping with the Honorable Prime Minister's vision for the Indo-Pacific region, Sagar, security and growth for all in the region, the Navy will remain at the forefront of cooperative engagements founded on a free, open, inclusive and rules-based approach to regional maritime security. On behalf of all uniformed and civilian personnel of the Indian Navy, I take this opportunity to convey my best wishes to our countrymen on the occasion of Navy Day. Finally, I would like to thank the Government of India for giving me the honor and privilege of leading this fine service. Lord Napier's words are apt and relevant that, I quote, "A man who commands an army," in this case I would say the Navy, "cannot succeed unless his whole mind is thrust into his work. The great art of commanding is to take a fair share of the work. The more trouble, the more labor must be given. The more danger, the more pluck must be shown until everything is overpowered." Unquote. I will follow this fully. My aim is to build on the legacy of my predecessors without any disruptive changes, whilst at the same time seeking disruptive technology to find better ways of doing a job at sea. Our focus will be ships first, so that the operational units and the personnel manning them are empowered enabled and supported to the hilt. Jai Hind, Shano Varan.
Thank you, sir. We'll now be taking questions. I'll just request you to...
Sir, namaste. This is Ajit Dubey from ANI. Congratulations for taking over as the 25th Navy Chief. Sir, I want to start by asking you about your main focus areas as a Navy Chief. And secondly, sir, you have worked in the IDS in its DMA in its initial days. How do you see the future of armed forces working together in an integrated manner? Thank you, sir.
Okay, is there anybody who wants to ask any question related to DMA? Yeah, please.
Please wait for the mic.
No.
The mic is coming to you.
Related to DMA.
Yes, sir. So
Okay.
you said the Maritime Theatre Command will be rolled out by middle of next year. In your role as CISC and now, former role as CISC and now as Navy Chief, if you could just tell us what are the challenges which the armed forces are encountering on the road to theaterization?
You have asked about Maritime Theatre Command, and the Theatre Command, that I'll come to subsequently, okay? I told you that I want to take forward the legacy of my predecessors. The theme of Indian Navy, a combat-ready, credible and cohesive force, is what we'll be taking forward. Now, in this regard, my approach is of ships first. Why ships? Because the Navy symbolizes ships, just like aircraft represents the Air Force. The Navy is symbolized by ship. And the word ship is very important for us. If you look at the usage of the word ship, it is quite interesting. When we pray to God, it is worship. When we study, you have scholarship, sportsmanship, apprenticeship, internship. We are all citizens of India. There is citizenship. As far as media is concerned, you are concerned about viewership, readership. So you have ship there also. As we grow up, we enter into relationship, courtship, partnerships. As we grow further, older, we are worried about membership, chairmanship, leadership. And we are all very conscious of ownership of our data, of our information, of our media bytes, and so on. The only one ship which I don't want in my Navy, in the Indian Navy, and which I have already decommissioned, is one-upmanship. So I just want to highlight that the word ship is very important, not just to the Navy, but also to each one of us. We use it in many ways, and I have put particular thrust on this, and each of these letters I have elaborated for the Navy. Like S stands for ships first, H for happy teams, I for infrastructure and housing, P for a positive, proactive approach, S for safety and security, F for fit, fair, and fearless, I for being imaginative and industrious, R for being responsive and relentless, S for steadfast in support, and T for timeliness in action. So this is what is my message to the Navy, and I'm looking at, as I told you, finding different ways of fighting, induction of modern technology, disruptive technologies, and so on. Coming to the second part of the question, where you asked about the DMA, I think this is the single most important higher defense organization reform that has happened in our military since independence. The creation of the CDS, of the post of CDS, and the creation of the DMA.
Because China currently has around 355 frontline ships, and it is now reportedly the biggest navy in the world. It has close to 400 ships, but frontline ships it has 355. So when do you plan to achieve the target of 170 ships? Any deadline? And how do you see the overall situation in Indo-Pacific?
The Indo-Pacific is got great importance for us. We have over $200 billion of trade passing through these waters. We have a lot of our diaspora staying in these littorals, so the importance just cannot be underscored. The Navy over a period of time has evolved from a small navy of 33 ships to what it is today. It is a potent, well-balanced and capable force. We do not look at bean counting, and we do not look at capability developments against any particular country. We develop a capability based upon our maritime interests, and our and so therefore our planning, our preparedness, everything is to ensure as to how we preserve, promote, and protect our maritime interests. So towards this, there are these capability development plans which are in place, and we had a maritime capability development MCPP for 2012 to 2027. But now, since the creation of the CDS and the DMA, I have been there in SQIDS. We have worked out a system called the Integrated Capability Development System, which is intended to develop the plans for the development of capability. I'll just briefly explain to you about this. It is a scientific process. It is based on environment scan, based on net assessment, and the national military objectives, the subordinate military objectives. All this provide the inputs, and based on the inputs, the military strategy is worked out. Based upon the strategy, you work out what are the missions and what are your capabilities that are to be derived for the missions. And thereafter, from this, you work out the capability gaps, and then from the capability gaps and the successional capabilities that are being factored, you develop the requirements. Then you do a financial mapping and prioritization, both intra-service as well as inter-service. And from this, you arrive at the deliverables. So what are the deliverables in this? The 10-year ICDP, it is called Integrated Capability Development Plan, a 5-year acquisition plan, and a 2-year roll-on annual acquisition plan. So with these plans being developed, they are put up to the authorities for approval, to the Apex leadership, where the budget is matched with the plans, and in case there are still any capability gaps, then mitigating strategies are worked out in terms of diplomatic, economic, and so on. So that is the rough process, and with this, once the process is already underway since the last year, and it is expected to be completed by say the middle of next year or towards the end of next year. All the three services are factoring their plans. There are teams from each capability development directorate of all the three services which are working on it. And once this plan is finalized, then we look at the numbers and the capability that will accrue to each service. Okay.